Hey, welcome everyone to the Author Spotlight. This podcast is sponsored by yourauthorhub.com, and I'm your host, Cynthia Martin. And we come together, those of us who are avid readers and avid book lovers, and we come together and talk to authors about their books and about the writing process. So we want to welcome you today, and we want to welcome today's author. And we have Jenny Sansom with us today, Sansom, and she has written the book Healing with Gemstones. So welcome to the interview today, the Author Spotlight interview, and we'd love you to tell us about who you are and what you do and your book.
Okay, my name is Jenny Sansom. I got started digging rocks when I was a child. My brother and I would dig rocks out of the backyard. We live in a rural area, and we take our dad's hammer and slam it, break them open so we could see what was on the inside. That's how it all started.
Wow.
I've worked in jewelry. I've been designing jewelry for over 20 years. It's just something that's progressed. And when I started writing things down, I was writing down the gemstones and their countries of origin, because people would ask me, where do these stones come from? And I feel that's important. You want to know all the information you can, when you get a piece of jewelry. And so that's how this started. And a friend of mine said, well, while you're doing that, why don't you add the properties, the healing properties of the gemstones? And I thought that can't be any big deal. Well, I found out it's a very big deal.
So yeah, that's interesting. I love how one of the questions I like to ask authors is when they're writing their books, did they come into any surprises? And you already beat me to the punchline here, that you've already found a surprise. So let's back up for just a second. And it says you lived in a rural area, which I'm assuming here in the United States, and which
I'm
area?
sorry. Yeah, I grew up in Michigan.
Okay,
And
I grew up in Michigan as well.
Whereabouts?
In the middle of the state, in a little town called Harrison.
I know Harrison. My ex-in-laws were from there.
Okay. Where were you?
I'm in Clarkston. We're between
Okay, I know
Pontiac
where
and
Clarkston
Flint.
is. Everybody gets out their hands and tells where they're
That's
from.
right.
That shows we're a true Michigander. So you're in
That's right.
Michigan, and I understand what it's like to live in the rural area in Michigan. There isn't a whole lot that goes on. You got
No.
to come up with your own little things. And so you
Yes.
decided, you and your brother, I don't know, older, younger, whatever,
Younger.
to break up rocks.
That's
So
right.
it was so during that time, did you find lots of different rocks, and is that what got your fascination of what was on the inside?
Yes. We found a lot of granite. There's a lot of limestone here in this state.
Yep.
And when I was in elementary school, I would check a book out of the library on rocks and read about them. So this started a long time ago. I'm 74. I've been doing this for 60 some odd years. 68 years.
That's fascinating. My husband has a fascination with rocks, and I always think of him, really, you want to look at rocks? And it's just really interesting, the dedication someone who loves rocks really puts into it. And I'm just thinking, but they're rocks. And so you've taken something that someone like myself would think it's just a rock, and you've turned it into something that's turned into probably an occupation, and
Yes.
a way for you to probably make some things, an outlet of your creativity, and
Yes.
all out of being a child and breaking open that rock. So
That's right.
fascinating.
That's
Yeah.
how it started.
Yeah. I always say that it's important to look at children and not discourage them from their little habits and the things that they like to do, because it's really truly an indicator of the direction in which their life should go. And that you are a true proponent and an example for that belief that I particularly hold. So you did this, you obviously became a teenager, and you grew up, and what moved you from splitting rocks in your yard to making jewelry?
Well, like I said, I worked in fine jewelry at a department store in Rockford, Illinois after we moved there. And just the thought that God had given us all these things. And when you look at don't judge a book by its cover. When you look at the outside of some of these rocks, they look like, ugh, but you open them up and they polish them and they're gorgeous.
Wow.
And I think that's probably something that I thought about forever, And
Yeah.
about 24 years ago, a friend of mine says, you can make jewelry. I said, I don't know anything about making jewelry, but I taught myself. And I've learned a lot through that process. A lot of failures.
Yeah, my husband and I got this great idea. We were going to make little bangle bracelets for our granddaughters. We thought, how hard could it be? Well, it was a big deal, and I don't like anything if it takes more than 10 minutes. And so my husband, who is much more creative than I did, had to end up making the bracelets. And I thought, we'll never do that again. It was not a simple, easy, personalized thing. It would have been better to purchase them, that's for sure.
Yes.
So my
Yeah.
hat's off to you to staying involved in that, and that staying true to, what was of interest to you. So I think the great example that you said is about the rock and the don't judge a book by its cover, because we
Right.
do. We do
Yeah.
look at a book and we decide it's what attracts us in, and publishers know that. And then the next thing is we flip to the back cover
Yeah.
and we read what it has to say to see whether it's going to pull us in, whether we're going to, maybe we'll even open it up and run through the chapters to see if it's something that we're interested in. And so, what a great example to correlate that to a rock. You see a
Yes.
rock and you think, there's nothing there. But when you open
Exactly.
it up, you see something totally different. And that, what a fabulous example. I love how you've made that correlation. So you then begin to apparently, I'm just following the progression naturally in my mind, and if I get it wrong, please correct me. So you're a child, you begin working in fine jewelry. Someone mentions to make your own jewelry. So had you at that point already studied gemstones because of the fine jewelry? How did the interest of actually studying gemstones? When did that start, and how did that work?
Well, I have to tell you, I used to watch, and I still do. I don't say used to. I watch on HSN Jay King. He is fabulous. And he always would sit there and tell you a little bit of history on the stones, where they're from. And I would take notes. That's what started me taking notes and wanting to learn, where these stones come from.
Right.
And um, a friend of mine said one day, well, Jenny, why don't you add the healing properties? And I thought, well, that can't be any big deal. You have no idea what a big deal it is, because the gems don't do just one thing. They cross over the lines and they do several things.
Right.
And when I started doing this, I thought, oh my gosh, God told us he had given us everything we needed to take care of ourselves on this planet. And he was right. We're made up of every chemical that's on this earth. We have gold, we have platinum, we have silver, plus all the chemicals from the clay and what have you.
Okay, you're
And
saying inside of who we are or inside of the
no,
rocks?
in our bodies,
Okay.
we're made up of every chemical that's on this planet.
Wow. And you discovered that through the same research when you were researching rocks?
Yes.
Wow.
And so every stone has its own chemical makeup. And what I found is when we start losing some of those chemicals from our body, the gemstones can replace that by wearing them. And
Okay.
therefore they help. I've done over 850 pieces of healing jewelry in the last 20 years. And I've had 7 pieces that either they didn't tell me all the information I needed, or there were so many, some of them, there's like 30 stones that can help people. And maybe I didn't choose the right one, but I'd take it back and I'd redo it and then give it back to them, and they worked. So we
Wow.
were able to, work all that out.
So explain to me when I got several questions here and I'm trying to figure out in what order I want to ask them. But
Mhm.
so your friend told you to research the healing properties. How do you go into researching the healing properties of gemstones?
I Googled it. I would go
Oh,
into Google and ask, what are the healing properties of whatever gemstone I was working on at the time? And
okay.
it would give me a whole list, and all the people that had researched that prior to me. My book is a compiled information.
Okay.
So, and there, in the bibliography, everybody is listed
Yeah.
where I got my information from. So I was just amazed
Wow.
at how much information there is out there.
And so you got the information and you put it together with the gemstones, and then people started coming to you and asking you for these, or you thought, let's
Yes.
try this. How did that work?
Well, I've had people ask me, is there something that'll help me? Like a lady at church said they thought she had a brain tumor. She actually had huh? She was, oh, I can't even think of what it is now. Oh, she had vertigo. Thank you. And she asked if I knew of anything that would help. And I said, I had just worked on that stone the night before. And I told her that lapis lazuli is what everyone was suggesting for vertigo. So I said, if I make you a bracelet, will you wear it and see if it helps? I did. And she couldn't believe it. She even quit taking her medication. I said, no, 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 don't do that. When she went to see her doctor, she was all done with vertigo. She had no more incidences. And
And so just
another,
wearing a piece like a bracelet, or I was just going to
yes,
ask, how do they wear just a small stone? Does it matter the size, and you wear it on your wrist or a necklace, or how does earrings? I guess I was confused as to how that would work.
well, I made her a bracelet, and I've researched and found that you need at least 20 pieces of whatever gemstone you're using. So I made her bracelet, and I used larger stones, which I use 4 millimeter, which are about the size of your baby fingernail. So there's not a lot of weight to it. You don't want to be wearing a lot of heavy stones. You look like Wilma Flintstone. So,
Yeah.
so it's taken me a lot of years to get it whittled down to what, will help.
Right. And so your belief and from your research, your outcome of your research is whatever is in these gemstones have some sort of matter. I don't know. I may be slaughtering the words terminology because I'm not in the rock business.
Right.
But some sort of matter in them, or substance or element, I guess, any of those words, that the person who's suffering with something needs. And the
Yeah.
application of these gemstones to the skin apparently absorbs. Is that correct?
Yes, the body will absorb the chemicals from the gemstone. And that actually helps put this, instead of taking medication, it helps put the chemicals back into your body, and it alleviates whatever's going on.
So I'm assuming then if that you don't put any kind of coating. I'm assuming when you make
No,
jewelry, you shine them and put shiny stuff on them, but you don't in your particular instance.
no, you put nothing on it. I just string it. In fact, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, and I made this bracelet for myself. It has pink and purple fluoride in it, and then my treatment was radiation, and this is yellow kunzite, and I wore it during my uh, radiation sessions. I did not get burned as other people are getting burned when they have it.
And so
So
that is the helping agent of whatever that yellow stone
yeah,
is.
yes,
Okay.
the yellow kunzite that helped, and
Okay.
I'm cancer free 4 years. So and I have a friend that has arthritis in her neck. I made her a necklace, and it works great. Black obsidian and carnelian are two stones that are for that.
So I'm just going to ask an obvious question, and maybe I should have prepared you, but for the audience, we don't prepare which questions we're going to talk about on the interview. And
Right.
so I'm just going to throw this out there because I think it's a logical question that some people may say. What do you say to the people who are naysayers, that they think this is just too strange?
Well, I have a sister-in-law that is a naysayer, but she learned that she has gout, and she would get gout frequently. So I said, take my ankle bracelet, because I have it too. Take my ankle bracelet, which is comprised of turquoise and prehnite. Prehnite is from Australia. And I said, take it to Florida with you. When you start feeling like you're getting it, put it on. Well, she found out it works. So she
Ah,
had me make her one too.
so she became a believer after
She
she
did.
practiced it, right?
Yes, she did.
Wow. And so your premise at the very beginning, you mentioned that we're made up of elements of the earth, this is all new to me, so I'm just trying to get this straight in my head, just to
Yes,
be honest. And so we're made up of elements of the earth. I'm not scientific or anything. All I do is talk. I can talk,
right.
but I don't do science. So
Yep,
the rocks replace what we're missing, that when things are missing, that's what causes sicknesses and diseases and afflictions. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so then we apply or wear or have near us or I guess just wear on your skin these
Right.
elements, and it helps curb the effects and maybe even heal um, the outcome of this disease or affliction, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And so you've had naysayers that you've given them jewelry, and they've are there other people out there that do the same kind of thing that you do?
Well, I'm finding out, believe it or not, my uncle is a doctor in California. He's a chiropractor, and he would send patients to me for help. When I first started writing the book, I sent it to him. My friends wanted to know what he thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And after 9 days of having it, I called him back because I hadn't heard from him. And he said, "Well, I'm reading it." And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I didn't expect you to read it cover to cover. I just wanted to know what your opinion of my work was."
Right.
And come to find out, doctors are going in that direction. They are um, finding that they're not getting the adverse effects from the gemstones that they get from some of the medications. And
Right, because
so,
I would assume the gemstones, because they're in their natural state, and pharmaceuticals, we put all these chemicals and all the other things in them. So that makes
yeah,
sense.
yes. So I was at my pharmacy picking up a prescription, and the pharmacist asked me what I was doing, and I told her, and she goes, "Well, Jenny, that's the way medicine is going. They're heading in that direction. Doctors are learning about this, and they're finding out that it does help. It does work."
Wow.
So I was in shock.
Interesting. Interesting. And you just kind of stumbled upon it. Do you think that's what happened?
Yes, I know. I know that's what I felt. I have to tell you, I felt God's hand in the middle of my back going, "Come on, Jenny, let's get this done. Let's keep going. Come on, keep going."
Right.
And um, in fact, my granddaughter had called me because in my book there's a section on healing gemstones for animals, pets, cats, dogs. And she called me and she said, "Mimi, do you think that a gemstone will help my cat? He has asthma." And I said, "Well, the only way we can find out is I made him a collar and put the stones in the collar and left the mesh. I put mesh on one side of it so that they can have contact with the gemstones. And it stopped his asthma." I was
Wow.
surprised. So then I went into the animal part,
Yeah.
and started researching on that. And since then, I've done four dog collars for a patient of my uncle's out in California. And a friend of mine at church had me do one for her cat who had had a TIA, which is like a mini stroke. And the cat would only walk in circles. So a few weeks ago, she asked me to do a collar for her cat, and I did. And after wearing it for 3 or 4 days, the cat would walk in a straight line for about 5 feet, and then it would go a circle, and then it would continue on in a straight line, and then it would go in its circle pattern again. So, they're out there. They help everybody, even our animals.
Wow. And so, because again, I don't know anything, so I'm assuming that animals are made up of this, the not maybe not the same because they're different, but the
Correct.
elements of the earth as well.
Yes.
Interesting. So, how have you? Let me back up. I was going to ask a question, but let me ask this question first. Is this your first book?
Yes. It is my first book. I mean,
And
I,
what?
I printed things up for my friends,
Yeah.
but I had no intention of ever doing this and going public with it. It was for my friends and myself, those that were interested in this type of work. And my ex-husband told me I needed to get a copyright on it. So I sent it in to the Library of Congress for copyright, and all this has started from that.
Wow. That's interesting. Then, not writing the book and putting the copyright on the book, you put a copyright on the name, or what did you get your copyright on?
Well, it's on the contents of the book.
Oh, on the contents of the book. Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about do you have any plans to go further? I mean, did you cover all of the stones or all of the gemstones, or are you,
They're
are
always
you
coming,
through?
nope, they're always coming up with more gemstones. I now have 10 pages for an appendix.
Okay,
So if they go into another print, I can go in and add another 10 pages for the appendix
okay. So have
or
you
add it
prior,
right in.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No,
So
no,
have
or
you
add it right into the book.
exactly. So have you in the past, or had you prior to this, I think you kind of answered it, but I wanted to ask the question, have you ever saw yourself as an author?
No, I'm probably your least likely author on earth.
Okay, so you didn't. A lot of people I talk to, they say, "Oh, I've been writing my whole life. I've kept journals." One gentleman I interviewed, he had been a journalist prior, and that that just seems like it's an obvious next step. So that hasn't been in your history.
No, ma'am.
So for those of uh, people that are watching us, the authors and the hopeful authors, those that are wanting or dreaming of writing a book, there's hope for you. If you've never written, but you're wondering if you could do it, apparently Jenny says that you can. I know that I was a journal writer, but when I wrote my books, I wondered because I have horrible grammatical and punctuation skills, and
Uh-huh.
so you can do it. There's encouragement for you out there for those authors who want to write a book. So when you were writing this book, how did you decide to put it together? As far, did you do the rocks alphabetically? Did you get any
Yes.
kind of a writer's block when you just you got the idea? Okay, I need to do this book. Where did you go from there?
I alphabetized everything. Any
Okay.
problems that you're having physically, it's alphabetized. The gemstones are alphabetized in the back, and in the section for the gemstones, I also put in there other, they may cover what you're interested in, but it tells what else it covers, what other inflictions that it would help.
Right.
So it was like a cross reference, I guess.
Yeah. So how long has your book been out?
It came out a year ago in December.
Okay. And so would you say was the hardest part of writing this book?
Making sure I had everything spelled right.
Now that's an honest writer.
There are so many gemstones, and some of them you cannot, you know, phonetically
Yeah.
sound out and get it spelled correctly. So that was my biggest thing, was making sure that everything was spelled perfectly. I had my sister-in-law, she went through, bless her heart, and she edited the book for me.
So
So
I have when you were writing the book, did I don't want to make assumptions, and I think I've made some assumptions from the things that you said. So, did when you uh, felt the urge or felt directed to write the book, I'm
mhm.
assuming that you had work papers already that you'd been giving to friends, or were they assembled? Or did you just need to assemble them, or did you need to do additional research? How did you approach that?
Well, what I started out with was the list of the gemstones and their countries of origin. And I was up to like 30 pages on my computer, and I would send that out to my friends maybe once every 6 months so they could have updated lists. And that's when my friend Vicky asked me if I would do the healing properties too. So I did. And I didn't think it would be any big deal, but I was so mistaken. So mistaken.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there. And I'll get calls from people asking, do you have something for this problem? And I'll look in my book, and if it's not there, then I'll research it, and I will go out and, you know, I'll let them know what it is, what information I found, and
Wow.
they go from there.
And so, do you have a website, or how do these people contact you? Is your contact information in your book?
It is. It
Okay.
is.
So,
Absolutely.
and you can find your book, just let's not wait till the end of our program today, but you can find your book on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so the reception of the book has been quite good, it sounds like.
Well, that's what I'm told. I was asked to do a seminar in St. Joseph, Michigan, which is over on the west side of the state by Benton Harbor. And I've been over there twice now. I just did my second seminar with them. And before I finished with it, the director came in and asked me if I would do a third one. And I said, okay, I figured they'd be tired of listening to me talk, but apparently not.
Well, apparently it's an interesting topic to them as well. So, what kinds, I think you've said, I think there was a number of how many people that you have, maybe not documented, but you know of that this has helped. How many people was that, and what kinds of afflictions has this helped with?
Well, I've done 850 pieces of healing jewelry. SBS is a small bowel syndrome. A friend of mine, her sister had that, and she was looking at a colostomy, and her mother asked me to make her a bracelet, and I did. It was too small, so they had me make another one, and they attached the two, and she no longer has to go through any of that. She was so thrilled. She was so thrilled. She lives in Oklahoma, and I've had several people with arthritis that it's helped. Anxiety. I've done a lot of jewelry for people with anxiety, high anxiety. I had a friend that told me she had depression and wanted me to do a bracelet for her for depression. So I made it. 3 days later, she called me back and she said, "You don't even know what you're talking about." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "It hasn't done anything for me." I said, "Tell me exactly what the doctor told you." He told me I have clinical depression. I said, "That's a whole different story." So I took her beads back. I made one for clinical depression, and she was fine. And she apologized because she knows that they work, you know. So we're right now, I'm waiting for some stones to come in from India for her glaucoma. She has glaucoma, and she called me and asked me if I would make a necklace for her.
So you
So
don't
I'm
have pieces made up in advance, you make them as ordered.
correct, because I don't know if, what size wrist or neck they have, how long or short they want it. So everything is handmade. When I get the information I need, I mail it out to them so that, they can get it and start helping them.
And so it's very much a specialized order almost, you would say.
It is. It is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so because our program is the author spotlight, and it's really focused on those who are authors and getting their book out there and telling about the different types of books they have, which is this book is totally different than anything that I've ever interviewed an author about. And so we love to have the differences in the content. But because we want to talk to the authors, let's talk about the actual writing process and how you did this. Do you have a specific space that you put aside that you write at? Do you have a certain amount of hours a day that you devote to your craft, or is this, how do you work that?
Well, when I was writing it, I would do it whenever I had the opportunity. I was taking care of my mother at the time. And so I'd be doing it while she was watching TV, writing it. And then when she went to bed, I would continue on until I got tired and went to bed and start the next day.
How long do you think it took you to write your book?
Probably about 8 years, because new information was coming in all the time. I was having people request things that I hadn't even thought of putting in the book, something real simple,
Yeah.
And and along with that, I've fallen into making roll-ons using essential oils and jojoba oil as a host oil, and then putting gemstones in it. And the roll-ons will help people also. So
So by
it's
putting
just
gemstones in it, do you mean you ground them up?
no, what I've done is I've taken chips of the gemstones and put them in the roll-on bottles.
Okay.
And then I put the essential oils in that help, and then heat the jojoba oil, because once you heat that and pour it in on top of the gemstones, the chemicals in the gemstones are released.
Okay.
And it infuses with the essential oils.
Wow, that sounds like chemistry.
Well, it is, and And I have to tell you, as a child, I used to take my mother's perfume bottles and take my china, my little china dishes, and I'd mix them up to see if I could come up with something special, to wear.
That again proves my point that we should encourage children to continue, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
what they do as children. It's amazing that all of this background of you splitting rocks and playing with your mothers with your tea set and different chemicals as a child has developed into what you're doing today. It's
Yes.
amazing. And I so appreciate you
Thank you.
saying 8 years because
Mm.
people think, oh, it'll take me just a month or two to write a book, but the years of research.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And
there's just
also, when I would go out and visit my uncle
excuse me.
periodically. And one time I was out visiting him and he asked me if I could come up with something to protect people from the 5G radiation, the 5G towers and things. I didn't even know what 5G was or what an EMF was.
Mhm.
I had no idea. So when I came home from visiting him, I researched that for about 6 months and found out all the information I needed and then checked gemstones. So we've come up with uh, a pouch that has 16 different gemstones and silver in it. And when they combine, they actually do block. They don't prevent it, but they block the radiation from harming the body and things.
Wow. Is that what you
So,
used when you went through radiation for your breast cancer, or that was something else?
no, that was something else, but I got the breast cancer. My oncologist said I had a greater than 20% chance of getting the breast cancer because I used to stick my phone in my bra
Ah,
because I'd have pockets in my pants and I was cleaning people's homes and, it was easier just to stick it there. That's right.
yeah,
And
I've actually been guilty of doing that myself. Oh, not a lot, but I have.
yes, well, don't do it anymore.
No, doesn't sound like that's a great thing to do for sure.
No, no,
So, Jenny, we are actually out of time, and I've been much of a skeptic as I came in today. You probably didn't have to take you a whole lot of to figure that out because I was like, how does this work? And as I said, I wasn't really that into rocks, and so um, thank you for the information today. I've really enjoyed learning about it, and it's opened my mind to other things. And I'll talk to my husband about it because, like I said, he's a rock guy. But
there
I
you
do
go.
appreciate that. I love that, you went after what your interest and it developed into what you're doing today and you're helping people.
Yes. And I'm
That's
glad that's what
fabulous.
it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I want to remind everyone you can go to Barnes and Nobles or to Amazon and get Jenny's book. And the title of that is Healing with Gemstones. Understand in the book, there we go. It's a beautiful cover.
Thank
Understand
you.
in the book, there's information if you want to contact her and talk to her about getting some possible jewelry because we're out of time today. But I've enjoyed listening and learning
Thank you.
and talking to our new author. And we want to thank our sponsor, yourauthorhub.com, for helping us to make this happen. And so we just want to say to you all and to Jenny, good luck with your book. And we hope it does fabulously. Have a
Thank you.
great day, everyone. Bye bye.
You too. God bless.